The Critical Thinker, a guide to effective problem-solving, precision in decision-making, and cultivated mental discipline. Written by Stephen Schuster, narrated by Russell Newton. In the canon of time-honored tales, a fable revolves around a man and his horse. The narrative opens with a lamentable incident where the man's only horse ran away. This calamitous event prompts an immediate wave of condolences from his friends. Yet the unflustered man offers a tranquil response. Let's wait and see, patiently anticipating the future's unpredictable turns. After a few days, the man's horse returned home, leading a troop of 20 untamed horses in its wake. While his friends hastily prepare to revel in this sudden stroke of prosperity, the man perpetuates his composed disposition, his mantra echoing, "Let's wait and see." It isn't long before the man's luck changes for the worst, as his only son is grievously injured by one of the wild horses, resulting in both legs being broken. As before, his peers hasten to offer comfort, yet he opts for continued patience, resolute in his desire to calmly appraise the situation. Let's wait and see. In an unexpected twist of fate, war descends upon the nation, and all able-bodied young men are conscripted, many meeting their end on the battlefield. However, due to his son's incapacitated state, he evades the draft, his life spared. His friends rejoice at this silver lining amidst the chaos, but the unwavering man retains his wait-and-see disposition. This fable is a good demonstration of critical thinking at work. The man's serene demeanor, imperturbable in life's vicissitudes, is a testament to his prowess as a critical thinker. He consciously refrains from rushed conclusions, choosing the path of reasoned judgment over emotional reactivity. His observant and meditative stance resists the temptation of being swayed by transient triumphs or setbacks. He comprehends that existence is a mixture of ebbs and flows and maintains an equanimous mindset, come what may. The basics of critical thinking. Critical thinking is a term we encounter frequently, especially if we browse a bookstore's self-help or psychology section. But what does it mean to think critically? Critical thinking is a highly valued intellectual ability that involves objectively analyzing and evaluating information before forming a judgment. It refers to the ability to look at issues objectively and make reasoned judgments free from emotional bias or unfounded assumptions. Critical thinking unfurls when we ask ourselves and others probative questions like, how do you know that? How did you reach that conclusion? What evidence supports this theory? Are there any other explanations or alternatives that haven't been considered yet? Critical thinkers often resist the allure of instinctual reactions, favoring a methodology grounded in logic and reasoned analysis over emotional impulses. They want evidence-based support of ideas, shunning the acceptance of information at face value. They adopt an investigative approach instead of blindly accepting purported truths by a relative's relative. People prone to have good critical thinking skills have the following three aspects in common. 1. An expansive sense of curiosity. Those deficient in curiosity are prone to unquestioningly accepting others' viewpoints as gospel truth. They're complacent in their knowledge journey, choosing the path of least resistance over exploring novel information. Proficient critical thinkers, on the other hand, espouse an open-minded approach, seeking and welcoming fresh evidence, even when it challenges ingrained beliefs. 2. A robust dose of skepticism. Skepticism does not equate to a blanket refusal or denial. Rather, it manifests as a readiness to question unverified information until further understanding is gained. Critical thinkers demand empirical substantiation before readily embracing what they hear. Absent a measured skepticism, the essence of critical thinking stands compromised. 3. A humble disposition. Accomplished critical thinkers possess the humility to acknowledge errors when confronted with new evidence. They do not obstinately cling to personal viewpoints. They recognize their fallibility as humans and permit new information to recalibrate their beliefs and perspectives. If you stand ready, willing, and equipped to challenge presumptions, to harness information in a quest for reasoned judgments, then you are posed to cultivate the critical thinking capacity that rejects notions of truth lacking in robust, quality evidence. Creative critical thinking. One might doubt critical thinking, fearing it to be overly rigid, potentially quashing creativity. However, it's quite the opposite. Critical thinking catalyzes creativity. You are impelled to conjure innovative explanations and solutions as you engage in rigorous analysis and problem solving. These two aspects of cognition are deeply intertwined. Critical thinking incites questioning and analysis, while creative thinking seeks patterns and the broader significance within a labyrinth of ideas. A historical pivot towards embracing this dual approach occurred in the 1980s, spearheaded by the critical thinking movement. This educational revolution emphasized nurturing critical thinking skills in students, veering away from rote learning of disconnected facts that often seem unrelated and irrelevant to the learners. It supported the premise that authentic learning happens when students delve into the exploration of information firsthand. The era of passive learning, where students served as mere vessels for absorbing information dispensed by teachers, was gradually replaced by a more engaged, interactive process. Students were encouraged to hone their critical thinking skills, adopting a questioning stance and independent problem-solving approach. Educators now model critical thinking skills, nurturing students to be proactive architects of their learning journey. Owning their learning process, the proponents of the critical thinking movement argued enhances students' long-term retention of knowledge while fostering competencies highly esteemed by prospective employers. These invaluable skills, they posited, would permeate all facets of students' lives. This movement did not stop in the 1980s. Even in the 21st century, teachers and business and political leaders persistently recognize critical thinking as an indispensable skill requisite for success in professional arenas and life at large. It remains a major driving force in education today and will most likely be for the foreseeable future. Critical thinkers are in control of their learning, and as a result, they often have a greater understanding of and empathy for differing viewpoints. In a world that stands to benefit from increased tolerance and understanding, fostering such creative thinking skills is indeed a worthy pursuit. Benefits of critical thinking. Engaging in critical thinking demands additional time and a conscientious effort, prompting the question, what's the payoff for me? While critical thinking might not be a walk in the park, the benefits it yields are undeniably profound. Those fortified with robust critical thinking skills possess an edge, enabling them to accomplish tasks beyond the average person's reach. Individuals adept in critical thinking have the knack for discerning connections between ideas others may overlook. They're proficient in scrutinizing theories and concepts, ascertaining their overall significance. Given their insistence on empirical proof before accepting anything at face value, they're skilled in identifying compelling arguments buttressed by evidence. They can construct their own to advocate their viewpoints. They handle problems methodically, adopting a logical, step-by-step approach. To gauge your critical thinking muscle strength, Answer the following questions. Are you willing to consider other opinions and possible solutions? Are you curious about a variety of topics? Do you enjoy learning new things and consider yourself a lifelong learner? Are you confident in your ability to reason? Are you adept at spotting situations where critical thinking is needed? Are you patient enough to reserve judgment until you have all the necessary facts? Do you keep an open mind when it comes to differing viewpoints? Are you receptive to others' ideas and opinions? Do you try to be fair and neutral when evaluating evidence? Are you aware of your biases, stereotypical thinking, and prejudices, ensuring they don't skew your thought process? Are you willing to change or abandon your previously held opinions when presented with compelling new evidence? If you can honestly answer yes to those questions most days, you might be exhibiting the characteristics of a critical thinker. This book aims to provide pragmatic guidance that can be swiftly incorporated into your daily life. If you are prepared to commit the necessary time and effort to implement this advice and continually learn and refine your skills, you might be astonished by your evolution as a potent critical thinker and the positive reverberations it can have on your life. Key takeaways. Critical thinking is a commitment to letting logic and reasoning guide your judgments and decision-making rather than giving in to emotion. Critical thinkers are in relentless pursuit of evidence and validation. They yearn for novel information and are prepared to revise or relinquish their pre-existing beliefs in the light of new compelling evidence. Critical thinkers are cognizant of their inherent biases and prejudices and actively strive to surmount these. They exhibit open-mindedness towards perspectives differing from their own. Critical thinking is a methodical and steadfast cognitive process that resists impulsive reactions or precipitated judgments. It necessitates a degree of curiosity, a healthful dash of skepticism, and an underpinning of humility. In their seminal works, Psychology and Psychology in Perspective, Carol Wade and Carol Tavris highlight 7 primary facets of critical thinking. In the forthcoming discourse, we shall meticulously dissect these 7 critical thinking guidelines and elucidate their applicability in our quotidian existence. The first step to start thinking critically is learning to ask questions. Allow your mind to wonder, reflect on your questions, and pay close attention to the answers you get. Try to think of questions that haven't been answered yet. Try to find the areas of a problem or theory that no one has asked questions about. Then ask yourself, why was this part of the problem or theory previously ignored? How did we end up where we are? What's wrong here? Why is this the way it is instead of another way? To illustrate the concept, let's consider the frequency at which individuals significantly alter their life paths, influenced by a lone, anecdotal instance relayed by another person. From our choice of restaurants to the vehicles we operate and the academic institutions we select for our children, our decisions are often rooted in a singular narrative recounting another's experience. A story. Amelia found herself in a predicament. Her 12-year-old son, Jim, was progressing toward high school, and the time was ripe to select a suitable institution. Amelia's close friend, Sarah, had recently enrolled her son in Ivywood Preparatory School, a renowned academy nearby. Sarah couldn't stop singing praises of the school's curriculum, faculty, and infrastructure. After hearing Sarah's firsthand account, Amelia wanted to enroll Jim in Ivywood Prep. However, Amelia, a scientist at heart, approached this decision like she would a complex research question. She reasoned that Sarah's account, although compelling, was a single data point, an anecdote, and did not guarantee that Ivywood would be the best choice for Jim. She identified her primary question: would Ivywood cater to Jim's learning style? Would it provide a nurturing environment to foster his talents and interests? Amelia decided to dig deeper and collect as much information as possible. She consulted other parents, read online reviews, studied the school's curriculum and educational philosophy, and even visited to observe the learning environment. She kept an open mind, acknowledging her bias towards Sarah's strong endorsement and consciously attempting to sidestep it. During her research, Amelia discovered a smaller, less-known school, Oakville Academy. This school's experiential learning approach aligned perfectly with Jim's kinesthetic learning style. It also boasted a vibrant drama club, a plus given Jim's burgeoning interest in theater. While it lacked Ivywood's prestige, the ethos and teaching approach seemed a more fitting choice for her son. Amelia's critical thinking skills led her to a decision different from the one she might have made based on a single, albeit persuasive, anecdote. She exemplified critical thinking in action by asking probing questions, seeking diverse sources of information, maintaining an open mind, and carefully evaluating her findings. Amelia's careful choice mirrors our daily decisions, be it the choice of a restaurant, a car, or even a school. Her actions underline the importance of not being swayed by a singular narrative or anecdotal evidence, but basing decisions on careful reasoning and informed judgment, characteristic of critical thinking. Articulate the questions well to define the problem. The quality of your inquiries significantly shapes the responses you receive. A poorly framed question might yield incomplete or deceptive answers. Given our innate aversion to being incorrect, crafting your queries in a neutral tone devoid of accusatory undertones is beneficial. Moreover, your questioning should be driven by the desire to extract information rather than sway opinions. When you formulate questions suggesting a preconceived answer, you risk diminishing the objectivity of the responses. As you develop your critical thinking skills, you must refrain from using them to manipulate others' viewpoints or exploit their lack of critical thinking skills. Manipulative tactics include deliberately phrasing a question to elicit a predetermined response. Such practices not only violate the principles of critical thinking, but also inhibit meaningful discourse and mutual understanding. A story. Companies sometimes resort to manipulation in their marketing campaigns. If you watched a late-night infomercial or browsed through shopping channels, chances are you've seen this manipulation at work. Salespeople typically start by introducing everyday problems that resonate with a wide audience. Laundry stains, dietary supplement dilemmas, anything many people can relate to. They show a scenario mirroring as the problem unfolds in everyday life, and then ask questions designed to elicit a predictable answer. Questions such as, do you grapple with persistent stains on your family's clothes? Do you wish detergent would remove every stain easily and immediately? Do you feel you're paying too much for a detergent that fails to combat stains constantly? Yes, yes, yes. Who wouldn't want that? Having set you on a path of affirming their premises with a series of yes responses, they leverage your inclination to maintain this pattern, hoping to persuade you into purchasing their product. They aim to obfuscate your critical judgment for their monetary benefit, which often proves successful. Maintaining keen critical thinking skills can equip you to discern and navigate such marketing ploys. Examine the evidence and look for assumptions and biases. Think about what evidence validates or disproves the argument you are considering. Avoid the prevalent assumption that a widely held belief, or one endorsed by apparent experts, must necessarily be true. All individuals are subject to their emotions and biases, which can impinge upon their ability to maintain impartiality. As you analyze an argument, you must account for others' biases and your own. A story. Cognitive biases are deeply entwined with critical thinking, with confirmation bias being a common example. This is the inherent bias we all possess, leading us to hunt for evidence to prove our beliefs. If we do a good job at it, confirmation bias can result in us thinking we're perpetually correct. Warren Buffett once said, "What the human being is best at doing is interpreting all new information so that their prior conclusions remain intact." His wisdom aligns with scientific understanding. Our brains are innately predisposed to process new information in the way that corroborates pre-existing beliefs rather than scrutinizing or refuting them. It's uncomfortable for us when our beliefs are challenged, and we often reflexively reject contradictory evidence. This unconscious cognitive bias pervades our thinking and can only be mitigated by recognizing and consciously addressing its influence. Why does confirmation bias have such a powerful hold on our brains? Our brains are incessantly bombarded with information, necessitating cognitive shortcuts to prevent overwhelming processing demands and conserve energy and effort. It's easier to reaffirm existing beliefs than to interrogate and potentially amend them, which requires considerable cognitive effort. The path to critical thinking isn't the most effortless route and requires deliberate cognitive effort, but its rewards are substantial. With an understanding of the pervasiveness of confirmation bias, you're equipped to identify its impact on your thinking. Acknowledging that you naturally favor information that corroborates your beliefs, strive to seek out counter-evidence consciously. Learn to entertain others' perspectives. Even if you ultimately agree to disagree, recognizing the validity of different viewpoints enhances your critical thinking skills. It reinforces the understanding that single, unequivocal truths rarely govern life, but often by various coexisting and equally valid interpretations. Let's consider a contentious issue, such as using and regulating artificial intelligence, AI, in society. This issue has divergent viewpoints, each influenced by unique perspectives, experiences, and knowledge, and understanding these can serve as an exercise in avoiding confirmation bias. One viewpoint champions the unrestricted development and deployment of AI. Advocates argue that AI's potential benefits, increased efficiency, automation of mundane tasks, acceleration of scientific discoveries, are too valuable to impede. They may view regulations as unnecessary obstacles that could stifle innovation and global competitiveness. Supporters in this camp may include tech entrepreneurs, scientists, or individuals directly benefiting from AI advancements. On the contrary, another viewpoint emphasizes the necessity of careful AI regulation. Critics express concerns over AI's potential impacts on job markets, privacy, and social dynamics. They might worry about deep fakes, algorithmic bias, or autonomous weapons, asserting that regulatory measures are needed to prevent misuse and mitigate negative societal effects. Advocates for this perspective might be social scientists, ethicists, or those who've experienced job displacement due to automation. Yet another viewpoint argues for a middle ground, fostering AI innovation while implementing thoughtful regulations. This perspective highlights the necessity for nuanced approaches, recognizing both AI's potential benefits and pitfalls. People who subscribe to this viewpoint often have interdisciplinary interests combining technical understanding with ethical and social considerations. Each viewpoint is rational and defensible in its own right, stemming from different experiences, knowledge, and priorities. By understanding and considering all these perspectives, we can avoid the trap of confirmation bias and foster a more balanced understanding of the issue. It's not about agreeing with all viewpoints, but acknowledging their validity and the reasoning behind them. This open-mindedness can lead to more holistic solutions that account for the complexity and multiplicity of perspectives on any given issue. What is your opinion about regulating AI? Why do you think that? Emotional reasoning can hold you back. Remember that while strong emotions can provide valuable insight, they don't always reflect universal truth. It's common for individuals to rely excessively on gut instincts, often sacrificing critical or objective reasoning in the process. When emotions trump evidence, it can lead to a conflation of feelings and facts. Personal experiences may shape these feelings, potentially obscuring the reality of the present situation. A story. In the wake of a loved one's death, it's not unusual for individuals to perceive natural phenomena as symbols or messages from the departed. In these moments of profound grief, the appearance of a heart-shaped shadow or an unusual bird may be interpreted as a sign. I recall a similar experience. After losing several close family members, I learned of a charming tale. Supposedly, if you saw a butterfly and whispered, "I love you," as it fluttered past, it would deliver your message to your loved ones in the afterlife. Once I'd heard this story, butterflies seemed to proliferate in my life. My rational part understood this to be heightened awareness rather than an increase in butterfly populations. However, my emotional part derived considerable comfort from this innocent act during a difficult time. Nonetheless, emotional reasoning can sometimes lead to perilous situations. For instance, a person might emerge unscathed from a serious accident and interpret it as a sign of future invulnerability. This could embolden them to take unnecessary risks, falsely assured of their immunity to harm. Despite these pitfalls, emotional reasoning isn't a bad thing. When balanced with critical thinking, it can offer significant benefits. Feelings such as empathy and compassion play an essential role, complementing our rational understanding. It's crucial to ensure this interplay doesn't harm others unnecessarily. Recent findings from the Harvard Business Review underscore this balance, demonstrating that managers who blend intellectual reasoning with emotional sensitivity are often more successful than those who rely solely on hard facts, ignoring the emotional landscape. Avoid overgeneralization. Frequently, individuals simplify matters excessively, focusing solely on cause and effect relationships. This reductionist mindset can obfuscate the broader context and limit openness to alternative perspectives. Such sweeping generalizations impede critical thinking, which seeks an objective and comprehensive interpretation of information to informed, reasoned judgments and explore potential explanations and solutions. A story. To illustrate, let's explore the concept of generalization. A generalization extends traits observed in a subset of a group to the entire group by association. In essence, after observing a few group members exhibiting certain characteristics, a generalization assumes the rest of the group shares the same traits. While generalizations can be useful, particularly in scientific research, misuse or overuse can lead to errors. A responsible generalization, based on a sufficient and representative sample, can expedite the understanding of a group without the need to examine each member individually. However, issues arise when overgeneralizations occur. Consider a situation in which a person's experience with a particular group of people leads them to form an overgeneralized belief about that entire group. Let's use a scenario involving Ali and their encounters with the tech industry. Ali, a talented graphic designer, once worked with a tech startup where the work culture was highly stressful. The team was expected to work long hours without acknowledgement or appreciation. The company's leaders were focused on immediate results and often dismissed the importance of employee well-being. This experience left Ali with a negative impression of the tech industry, leading them to generalize that all tech companies must have similar work environments. In this scenario, Ali's viewpoint was based on a single negative experience. They overgeneralized their encounter with one startup to represent the entire tech industry, an industry that is diverse and expansive, including countless organizations with varied cultures and values. Alex could utilize critical thinking to avoid falling into the trap of overgeneralization. They could start by questioning their assumptions. Is judging all tech companies based on one bad experience fair? Is it possible that other tech companies prioritize work-life balance differently? Could it be that Ali's experience resulted from the particular leadership style at that startup and not a representation of the entire tech industry? Next, Ali could seek additional evidence to support or challenge their assumption. Have there been documented cases of tech companies prioritizing employee well-being and work-life balance? How do friends and colleagues in other tech companies describe their work environments? What does research suggest about diversity in work culture across the tech industry? By asking these questions, Ali can challenge their overgeneralization and form a more nuanced perspective about the tech industry. In the process, they may find opportunities to work with organizations that align better with their expectations and values. This example shows how critical thinking can challenge overgeneralization, promoting a more balanced, evidence-based perspective. It illustrates the importance of questioning our assumptions and seeking broader evidence before forming sweeping judgments about a group or situation. The lack of such questioning can lead to catastrophic outcomes. Starting in the 1920s, tobacco companies used physicians' pictures promoting cigarette smoking's safety. Some doctors concurred that some tobacco brands were less irritating to the throat, which led to the publicized conclusion that tobacco is harmless. This overgeneralization led to an increase in smoking habits, causing countless premature deaths due to lung cancer and other smoking-related illnesses. Or consider the belief of the 2000s that all countries in the Middle East posed a threat due to the actions of a few that led to widespread wars and instability. This overgeneralization resulted in immense loss of life, long-term geopolitical consequences, and ongoing conflict and displacement of people. Another harmful overgeneralization is present in the law enforcement system. People from a certain racial or ethnic background are overgeneralized to be prone to criminal activity, which can lead to racial profiling and unjust treatment. This has resulted in numerous innocent individuals being imprisoned and a lack of trust between communities and law enforcement agencies, escalating social tensions and contributing to systemic inequality. The antidote to overgeneralization is thorough and deliberate critical thinking, promoting objectivity and resilience to fallacies. The first step is to increase self-awareness, examining your opinions and perceptions about yourself and the world around you. Identify areas where you might have made overgeneralizations or simplified your thinking excessively. Challenge these presumptions by seeking factual evidence to justify your conclusions. How can a situation be interpreted differently? Exercise caution when making hasty conclusions without sufficient supporting evidence. Once you amass an adequate amount of quality evidence, it is still prudent to consider alternative explanations before finalizing your judgment. A story. Consider the classic allegory of the 6 blind men and the elephant. In this parable, 6 blind men come across an elephant for the first time, and each touches a different part of it to understand what it is. The first man who feels the elephant's side declares it's like a wall. The second man who touches the elephant's tusk asserts it's a spear. The third, grasping the trunk, argues that it is a snake. The fourth holding the leg insists it's a tree. The fifth man who feels the elephant's ear says it's a fan, while the last man holding the tail announces it's a rope. They each have a very different perception of the elephant, and, arguing, they cannot agree on what they have encountered. This disagreement escalates into a heated argument because each man believes his interpretation is right. If we apply critical thinking to this scenario, we might start by recognizing that each man's perspective, although different, is valid based on their limited experience with the elephant. Rather than arguing, they might have benefited from sharing their experiences and piecing them together to form a more complete picture of the elephant. This story raises several thought-provoking questions. How often do we, like the blind men, base our opinions or beliefs on partial or limited information? How can we be more open to perspectives that differ from our own? When faced with conflicting views, how can we facilitate understanding rather than hostility? Could we develop strategies for integrating multiple perspectives to create a more comprehensive understanding? By delving into these questions, we can encourage critical thinking and stimulate a more inclusive, understanding, and thorough approach to interpreting situations and experiences. A cognitive bias that can obstruct critical thinking when considering different interpretations is the projection bias. This occurs when we struggle to move beyond our personal experiences and viewpoints, leading us to incorrectly assume that our experiences and thoughts mirror those of others. This bias can leave us trapped within our perspectives, inhibiting exploring additional information. Practicing critical thinking and accommodating alternate interpretations are vital tools in countering this bias. Failing to do so can inflate our sense of certainty and lead to overconfidence that can have grave consequences, such as accruing substantial gambling debts or mistakenly overestimating support for personal beliefs. Learn to tolerate uncertainty. As you cultivate your critical thinking abilities, you'll gradually understand and accept that critical thinking isn't a magic key to unlocking all mysteries or solving every dilemma. Sometimes you might conclude that some things simply remain unknown, and that's perfectly fine. Despite our brain's desire for definitive answers, occasionally we need to embrace the inherent uncertainties that life presents. It's a given fact that we can never fully predict what life has in store for us. Uncertainty is an uncomfortable feeling, no doubt about it. It's human nature to crave predictability and clarity about what's to come so we can brace ourselves accordingly. Our minds are naturally predisposed towards seeking certainty. However, life rarely offers such luxury. We must develop a degree of tolerance for uncertainty to navigate life effectively. To gauge your tolerance for uncertainty, ponder the following questions. Do you often seek validation and approval from others before deciding on something? This could pertain to trivial matters, such as choosing a hairstyle or selecting an outfit, or more significant issues like relationships, large purchases, or career choices. You may avoid making a decision independently because you fear an unknown outcome. Do you compulsively make lists for everything? If you have a list to track all your other lists, you might use them as a security blanket in the face of uncertainty. Are you notorious for checking and rechecking everything? If so, you may be craving more certainty in your life. Do you struggle with delegating tasks or sharing responsibilities? If you need to handle things personally to ensure expected outcomes, your tolerance for uncertainty might be low, reflecting a preference for control. Are you a habitual procrastinator? This might not be due to an aversion to certain tasks. It could stem from avoiding tasks due to uncertainty about success. Did these introspective questions reveal a lower tolerance for uncertainty than you initially presumed? Well, don't fret. You're not alone. We all exhibit some degree of intolerance towards uncertainty. Since eliminating uncertainty from our lives is impossible, we should instead strive to increase our acceptance of it. Exercise 1. How to explore the many facets of a news article. Pick a recent news article on a topic you're interested in. As you read the article, note the facts presented and distinguish them from the opinions or interpretations provided by the author. List any biases you can identify, including the language or tone used by the author, the choice of sources for information, or the aspects of the situation they chose to emphasize or downplay. Based on the information provided, formulate a couple of alternative interpretations or conclusions that could be drawn from the same set of facts. Share your alternative interpretations with a friend or family member. Listen to their input and see how your thinking aligns or diverges. This exercise helps to practice discerning factual information from interpretation, identifying bias, considering alternative perspectives, and engaging in a dialogue to refine your thinking. Exercise 2. Navigate uncertainty. Reflect on a recent decision you made, which could be as simple as deciding what to cook for dinner, or as complex as planning a career move. Identify the information you had when you made this decision. Did you feel you had enough information to make the decision comfortably, or did you have to deal with a level of uncertainty? In retrospect, identify any assumptions or generalizations you made while making this decision. Did these assumptions or generalizations help or hinder your decision-making process? Now think of alternative decisions you could have made based on the same information. What could have been the potential outcomes of these choices? Discuss your thought process and the alternative scenarios with a friend. Did they see any additional options or considerations you might have overlooked? This exercise helps to practice dealing with uncertainty, recognizing personal biases or assumptions, exploring alternative scenarios, and discussing your thinking process to gain different perspectives. Key takeaways. Avoid overgeneralizations. One of the key takeaways from our conversation is the importance of avoiding overgeneralizations in our thought processes. Overgeneralizations can lead to faulty conclusions and hinder our understanding of complex situations. Critical thinking lets us focus on individual characteristics or events without wrongly attributing them to entire groups or scenarios. Embracing uncertainty. Critical thinking doesn't always answer problems definitively. It's important to accept that there may be instances where we simply don't know, and that's okay. Being comfortable with uncertainty and developing a tolerance for it can help us make informed decisions without having all the answers. Valuing different perspectives. Critical thinking involves considering different viewpoints and interpretations. This is particularly important when different people may have distinct perspectives based on their unique experiences and insights. Understanding that multiple valid perspectives may lead to more comprehensive and nuanced conclusions. Questioning assumptions. A key aspect of critical thinking involves challenging our own biases and assumptions. This helps to ensure our conclusions are based on evidence and reasoning, rather than preconceived notions or unverified information. Encouraging informed decision-making. Throughout our discussion, we have reiterated the role of critical thinking in informed decision-making. It allows us to effectively collect, interpret, and use information to make reasonable judgments. This is particularly crucial in situations with significant real-life consequences, ensuring our decisions are based on a thoughtful and careful analysis of the available information. This has been The Critical Thinker, a guide to effective problem-solving, precision in decision-making, and cultivated mental discipline. Written by Stephen Schuster, narrated by Russell Newton. Copyright 2023 by Stephen Schuster. Production copyright by Stephen Schuster.